Hey, my name is Kayla. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the books that I read in March of 2021. Let's go. In March, I read 5 books. The 5 books that I read were Ready Player 2, Greenlights, Dear Girls, What If It's Us, and Life and Death. So my overview of these books may have some spoilers, so if you haven't read any of them, just beware. The first book that I read in March was Ready Player 2. There tends to be a common theme with me where I will place a book on hold that's like a high demand book months ago, and then it'll come up on my Libby app saying, hey, this book's available for hold, and I placed the hold like 2 or 3, 6 months ago, and it'll pop up and I'll be like, oh, okay, I guess I'll read it. Like, I'm not really into it anymore. Not really, like, definitely wasn't a book that I was, like, looking to read at that moment. And that's exactly what happened with Ready Player 2. So I read Ready Player 1 at the very end of last year. I had never read this book before, barely knew there was a movie. I think I saw that Ready Player 2 was coming out. And then I was like, oh, well, I will read that. It's a new book that's coming out. People are talking about it. So I placed Ready Player 2 on hold, and then I read Ready Player 1. And I remember Ready Player 1 being okay. I didn't care for all of the 80s references. I don't know. I don't really care for the 80s. I'm not like someone who's like, oh my gosh, I love all the movies and the music and all that stuff. Like, I don't really care. And so for me, I don't know why, once I finished reading Ready Player 1, I kept my hold on Ready Player 2, and I was like, oh yeah, I should definitely read the sequel. But I did. I think I probably just forgot I had it on hold, and then like 4 months later it came up and it's like, hey, it's time to read this. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I will, because I don't want to, what if I decide I want to read it? I don't want to wait like another 6 months. So I read it. And it was the same as the first one, like exactly the same. Like, oh, except for now, oh, he's not poor anymore. Now he's rich and he's in charge of this company. But there's another like Easter egg hunt. Like, oh my gosh, now he has to find the shards or whatever instead of the eggs. And there's more 80s references and there's more searching for it. And yay, like, I don't know. It was fine. I didn't really care for it that much. I wouldn't reread it. If the third one comes out, I'm not gonna read it. I'm gonna make myself probably not read it. I might read it. I don't know. We'll see how I feel if there's a third one coming out. I don't know. But I don't know. With all the 80s references and stuff that I just don't care about, I found myself just kind of skimming through those parts, being like, yeah, I get it. So I don't know if with the way it ended, if there will be another book or not. But we'll see. I do have to say about the book, though, it did give me more of a weirder feel about technology than the first book did. I think the fact that they were like tapped into their brain and using the Oasis or whatever, it did kind of freak me out. And there was this quote at the beginning of one of the parts that really kind of resonated with me, and I saw it and I was like, oh. So I thought the book did kind of do a good job of covering how dangerous like technology can be, and to kind of keep like a watchful eye on that. But at the same time, man, those 80 references are just like, there's so many of them, and it's kind of the same as the first book. And so I didn't really think it was super great. But if you liked the first book, then you'll probably like the second book because it's pretty much the same. The second book that I read this month was Greenlights. So after looking at the list of the books that I had read this month, I definitely would say that Greenlights was my favorite. Kind of looking at the other ones, I didn't care so much for very many of them, but I definitely really cared for Greenlights. I thought it was a really well-written book. This book I purchased, I actually purchased the physical book, which I don't ever do, but I purchased it when it first came out, and I think it's because I watched Matthew McConaughey on Hot Ones on YouTube, and I was just like into it. He was promoting it and like he was being super chill, and I was just like, yeah, I definitely want to read your book. So I went and I bought it. and I just now got around to reading it, but I really enjoyed it. I am really happy that I bought the physical book because flipping through the layout, I don't think would have translated well to an ebook. There's like a lot of handwritten parts from like his journals and stuff in there, and the coloring in the book was really cool. Anytime it said green lights or green light, it was in green. And I thought, with reading it on the Kindle, you wouldn't be able to see that. So I think that actually really added a lot to the formatting of the book. Last month when I read Born a Crime, that was, I had said that was like one of the first biographies that I had read maybe ever or in like a really long time. So this was the second one. So again, I'm still new to the genre, not really super well versed in it. So for me, the beginning of Greenlights, him kind of going over his childhood and kind of digging into that, I wasn't so much interested in that. Like it was okay. It wasn't super great. I really started getting interested when he got older and he started his career and he really started to find himself. When I was reading the book and after reading the book, I found myself anytime something that would happen, I would find myself saying green light, because that's what he would do throughout the book. This happens to you. Oh, that's a green light. I think that perspective is just really enlightening. And I thought that he had a lot of really good things to say, especially with him trying to figure out the direction for him to take in his life. I feel like he reset multiple times. And I thought that was really interesting to read about. So I really, really enjoyed this book. It made me really like Matthew McConaughey more than I did before. So I would definitely recommend this book. But if you are going to read it, I would recommend doing the physical copy just because the way that it's formatted and everything, I think really adds to the story. The third book that I read this month was Dear Girls. Once I had finished reading Greenlights, I wanted to give another biography a chance because I felt like I was on such a high after reading Greenlights that I was like, oh my gosh, I want to learn more about other people and I want to see if their perspective will help me to apply to things in my life. So I went to the biography section in my library's Libby app and I was just scrolling through and I found this biography, Dear Girls by Wong. So it's kind of written in form of letters, with her writing letters to her daughters. I do have to say that after reading Greenlights and like the such high I was on after reading that, this book was a bit of a letdown. I think that it wasn't as profound for me reading it as was the first one. I really like Wong, so I was really excited to read it. But at the same time, I was just kind of like, I didn't feel like I could relate at all. I thought it was interesting, like hearing about her growing up and how she got to where she is now. But I didn't really find myself like really connecting with the book. I do have to say though, with reading this book, she got so many more views from me on Netflix for her specials. I rewatched both of them. I already had seen them before. And then throughout the week I was reading this book, I was like, gosh, I forgot how much I had like really loved her. And so I was like, I have to watch her specials again. So I watched her specials again. And then I watched Always Be My Maybe like 3 times. I love that movie. And she kind of talks about like filming that movie in her book and everything. And I was just like, oh, that sounds so good. I need to watch that again and again and again. So if anything, if you're not going to read her biography, which it's okay. I don't know if you might get more out of it than me, but I would recommend watching Always Be My Maybe or her Netflix specials. The fourth book I read was What If It's Us? After in January reading Red, White, and Royal Blue, I really wanted to read another book that had the two main characters being of this, the two main love interest characters being of the same sex. So I was scrolling through the Libby app again, and I saw this book recommended, and the cover had like a picture of like 2 guys on it. And I skimmed the synopsis and it said that it was, a love story between them. And so I was like, oh, great, this sounds good. So I downloaded it and I started reading it, not knowing that the story is based on like 2 high school students. So that was kind of weird for me. I didn't expect to read a story that was kind of based in high school. I was more expecting more of like young adults or like adults and kind of reading that. So it was kind of hard for me to connect with the characters. I feel like I'm so far removed from high school at this point that it was kind of hard to put myself back into the high school setting. I think I would have enjoyed the book more if the characters were more my age. A lot of the problems that they had were kind of trivial, like high school things. And so for me, I couldn't relate to that. It's a good like young adult novel, but for me, I didn't realize it was young adult when I downloaded it. So I think for me, I'm kind of past that point. But I would recommend it if you're looking for like a cute love story that kind of centers around the same-sex characters. The story also was told from the two perspectives of the two main characters, so I did like that. So it alternated chapters and you got to see their different point of views. I really like when books do that. Overall, the story was okay. I didn't think it was super gripping or super interesting, but it was a pretty easy read. The last book I read for March, book number 5, was, guess what? Another Twilight book. It was Life and Death. Yet again, I have read another Twilight book this year. How does this keep happening to me? Okay, so January I read Midnight Sun and New Moon. And so the same with Ready Player One. I placed this book, Life and Death, on hold 6 months ago. I was walking through Target and I saw it on the shelf and I thought it was a new book. I thought that Midnight Sun, she had released this recently, like in 2020. And so I was like, oh, another new book. And so I placed it on hold. And then I finished the book and then I looked at the publication date. It was published in November of 2016. And so I was like, I don't know why I thought this was a brand new book. But I think everybody else maybe thought it was a brand new book, or it was all the hype around Midnight Sun that made everybody else on my through my library also place it on hold, because I had to wait forever to read this thing. When I saw this book in Target and I read the back of it, I read that like, oh, I don't remember if it said it was a retelling of Twilight, but basically the main characters are flipped. So the vampire is the girl and the person is a boy. And so for some reason, I thought that it was going to be a completely new story. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm a little bit interested in that. Like, let's see what you got. It turns out that like the entire story is exactly the same. I feel like she just did like Control F and found every single Bella and he, she's and like, or he's and just changed it to, or she's and changed it to he's. I feel like she just flipped everything to just be like, oh yeah, Bella's a guy now. And like the vampire is a girl. And so the story was the exact same. And I don't know if it would have been so bad if I hadn't have read Midnight Sun 2 months prior. So I feel like I've gotten a lot of doses of Twilight within the last few months because I read it and then I had a month off and then I just reread it all over again. And so I don't know why this keeps happening to me. And so basically I just skimmed the majority of it because it's the exact same story, the exact same dialogue. Everything's the same except for the main character's a guy now. And it was really weird with him being a guy because he's like this like guy who has no like interesting qualities or anything like that. And like I was just so bored and I was so irritated that I got sucked into reading Twilight again. The only thing that made this book worth reading for me was the alternate ending. Thank God she didn't do the same ending, because then I would have been really mad that I read the exact same book. The ending, the last like the last 3, I don't know, not the last 5 chapters, that might be too generous. Maybe like, okay, so he goes to Arizona and instead of him being saved, he gets turned into a vampire. So I don't know if there's the last 5 chapters, who knows. But it's an alternate ending and great, he gets turned into a vampire. So that's good. I really wish that I would have known that or had more like intuition to just completely not read the first however many chapters and only read the last 10%. I wish I would have just completely skipped to the end, just read the alternate ending and been like, oh, good job, Stephanie Meyer, you did an alternate ending. It was good. Thank you. But instead I read the whole thing, so that's on me. So if you haven't read this, if you're interested in the alternate ending, skip to the very end just to read the alternate ending. It's not really anything special. It's exactly what you would think it would be. Like he gets turned into a vampire and that's pretty much it. I did think it was pretty ballsy of her to like make us watch him watch his own funeral. I was kind of surprised by that. I was a little surprised that she didn't go the whole route of like him being like, oh, I'm still talking to them, but I'm a little different now, like she did in the original books. But I thought that was pretty like, I was like, oh, we're just killing him off, huh? But so I was surprised by that. But I don't know. Other than that, it was okay reading the alternate ending, but I definitely wouldn't read the whole book again. So needless to say, at this point, I am pretty Twilighted out. cross your fingers that I don't have any more Twilight books that I read this year. So far this year I have read 21 out of my 52 books. So thanks for watching. I will see you next year for April's books. Bye!